Welcome to The Mountain Gardener with your host, Ken Lain. Gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and local advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lain, here every week talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. So the Central Highlands, well, Flagstaff, the White Mountains, Williams, you folks have been in autumn. I mean, that mountain up there in Flagstaff the aspens are spectacular. Oh my gosh. Beautiful. It's what the northern Arizona is kind of famous for. Now, the Central Highlands, this next elevation down, that 4,500 to 6,000 foot level, it's our turn. We're starting to see some spectacular color. And a lot of them the trees get all the glory. I mean, let's face it, the aspens and the maples, this is when we sell and plant most of the maples and ash throughout the year because they're so pretty. People come in and go, I want one of those. I don't know what it is, but I want one. It's beautiful. My neighborhood's filled with them. And so the shrubs, they kind of take it in the chin. They're not quite as big. They're as showy, sometimes showier than actual trees, but they're smaller. And so they don't get as much play. The sumacs have been in color for a month or more. They're now starting to lose their leaves. The next windstorm, they're going to be naked. They are deciduous. That is, they lose their leaves in winter. Excuse me. So they're going to go dormant. So they've been in color. They're always the first ones. The sumacs are a native. They're very wild. You'll see them out while you're hiking around the Bradshaws, Mingas, just the forest. And so they're pretty. Another one that is similar, it's just starting to go into color, barberry. It's such a hardy little plant, full sun, just surround it with rock, kick dirt at it, just curse at it. And it's just happy growing out there. Now, barberries, they do have a slight thorn to them. Maybe it's quarter inch, no less than that. They're pretty without their foliage because they've got such an interesting structure. But their growing color is typically going to be purple, chartreuse, sometimes green, but really oranges, bright yellows. They're beautiful with their foliage. And then they transition and they'll turn to this orangey color. They're quite striking throughout the year. It's from a designer with plants. They are a go-to. I need a spotch of color here by the patio. Barberry, that's the one. But they're good in the fall of the year. Boston ivy. Now, Boston ivy is a direct relative. It's a cousin of Virginia creeper, which is the wild one. If you see a vine out there growing out in the forest, that's Virginia creeper. It's got 5 leaves to it. So it's turning red. It's beautiful. But Boston ivy is related to this, equally as hardy. They'll typically climb up walls. They're self-clinging, so you don't need a trellis. Or they'll climb up fences, block walls, but they are striking this time of year. They're just bright red with a tinge, with a smattering of orange. Really pretty. So the vines are turning. Another one that's like that is trumpet vine. Now, trumpet vine has had this beautiful red flower for 3 months. Hummingbirds love it. And so they've been in bloom. Now they're losing their blooms. There might be a few if you look hard enough. There might be some blooms, but basically it's going dormant and it's fall colors, much like an aspen. So it's this big, aggressive vine that we grew up trellises up over pergolas, up hillsides to hold the whole thing into place so it doesn't erode away. That's Virginia creeper, that's Boston ivy, and that's trumpet vine. Trumpet vine's turning yellow right now, gold. So if you see a big shrub, you can almost tell what it is just by the color. So red's going to be Virginia creeper, orange is going to be Boston ivy, and yellow is going to be trumpet vine. There you go. You're now an expert on fall colored vines. And all are equally hardy. They're very robust. Of course, the most famous, all you Midwest folks, you're going to love this. This is your plant, but it also grows really well here because it takes our cold winters. It's burning bush. Burning bush is just starting. The top edge is turning purpley red. And then another week, maybe less, maybe now, depending on what elevation, what sun you're at, sun exposure, you'll see it in full glorious burning red. like Moses goes up the mountain and sees tablets with a burning bush. That's it. It's that kind of red. It's beautiful. Now, burning bush is very hardy. It takes our cold, it does need to be in a drip system. So you want to water it once a week through the heat of the summer, but it's just a handsome, pretty shrub. It's nice green throughout the year. And then it turns this bright red. A lot of florists use burning bush for the stems, even without they've got this cork-like bark structure. This makes it very interesting. They look really good in floral displays. It just a vase of nothing but burning bush stems, maybe a little bit of ivy or something, and some orchids. It would be stunning. It's just beautiful. But out in the yard, naturally goes about 6 foot high. I don't know, just let it go. A lot of folks will keep them down in that chest to hip high or so, but it naturally wants to be a bigger shrub, kind of like lilac size or forsythia. It's a forsythia size, same kind of plant. One of my favorites, I love Nandina or heavenly bamboo. Now here's the secret. Now, heavenly bamboo is an evergreen shrub, real lacy. It looks like bamboo, but it's not. It's not as mischievous. It doesn't run and creep, and it's not invasive. It stays in its zone and doesn't outgrow it. Great little plant. Animals don't eat it. So it's got a sap to it that just the javelina and the deer and the rabbits, they don't like the taste of Nandina or heavenly bamboo. Comes in 3 different sizes. So head high, hip high, and ankle high. So spreading, kind of a shrub, and more of a tall screening thing. That your grandparents grew domestica, which is the big one. But it gets too big for a lot of places. So we've bred some smaller ones, some dwarves. But depending on how much sun that particular plant gets, the more sun it receives, the brighter it is in winter. And so it can turn this fierce red. I mean, just bright. Actually, there's a couple colors. There's red, orange, and purple plum passion Nandina. It's a new variety that we're bringing out just for the fall and winter color. It will hold its foliage, hold that color right through winter. And then next spring, it will bloom, has white flowers, puts on red berries, but then it will turn back to a green color. So it's just got this, I think every yard we need at least 1 or 2 or 5 Nandinas in the yard. I grow mine in containers out by the hot tub. I want something's huge patio. I need something with flowers just aren't big enough. So I put in which one is that? Gulfstream Nandina. It's a hip high one. And I just put that in a big old pot. It's been there for years. It winters over for me just fine. And it's striking. It's a good autumn plant. This is a time when you really want to plant those things. So this is your time when you introduce fall color. There's more selection now at the garden centers, and there's more sizes, and you can actually see what they're starting to look like as they go into their fall color. Spirea. Oh, it's an old-fashioned plant. I'm trying to reintroduce this plant. Spireas are very robust. They love our high altitude gardens. They're smaller, so maybe knee-high or lower. They get bright pink to white flowers in spring, but their fall color is gold with a tinge of orange. I like Spirea because there are so many animals, antelope, elk, and deer, and things don't eat Spirea. Rabbits, if you're out there in those plains where rabbits are, they don't eat Spirea. So you need a cute little plant has great fall color, but great spring flowers and just handsome, easy, balanced, mounding kind of plant. Spirea. It's famous now for the fall color, but it's famous in the spring for spring flowers. It's famous in the summer for its cuteness. It's a good plant for your. Anyway, silverberry is one of mine. Silverberry I have a lot of silverberry because it's a native. It's low water. Get it up to size, cut it off of all care. It takes care of itself. Silverberry or Ellie Agnes. If you think the name Ellie and then Agnes, Ellie Agnes is the name. That's the native one. Now out in the wild, it's blue with a green top growth with a blue underside. It's kind of can get a little wild looking, but we've bred one that's called, what's the name of that thing? I forget. It's a gold one. So, why did my brain just have a hiccup? Anyway, there's a gold variety of evergreen. Looks really good with chocolate colored rock up against fences. It grows up well above head height. head width. I think it's a much hardier plant than red tip photinia, some of the others, and great fall color. It's great color no matter what, because it's evergreen. And it keeps going. So I could keep going. That was this weekend's article. Take a look at those or go to wattersgardencenter.com. Download the list for yourself. Be right back after this. Feed your plants now for bigger, brighter, better fruit in spring.
Waters 644 fruit tree food is safely organic with added calcium for sweeter fruit quality.
Far safer for your pets and birds than those chemical fertilizers the box store sells.
And it's kinder on the environment, too.
Simply sprinkle on the soil and water it in.
Bigger, brighter, and better fruits in spring.
Get yours today at Watters Garden Center in Prescott. Natural, safe, organic.
You've been listening to The Mountain Gardener with Ken Lane, owner of Watters Garden Center in Prescott. Join him every week for timely garden advice right for the gardens. Visit Ken where he can be found throughout the week at Watters Garden Center in Prescott. You've been listening to Ken Lane, the Mountain Gardener. Green thumbs learned while working in the Family Garden Center. Now welcome back to the Mountain Gardener.
And we're back with Lisa Lain in the studio. She comes each week with your garden questions, just what are your neighbors talking about. I think there's some value in that. So we've definitely, it feels like autumn.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a buddy at Rotary goes, autumn is not September 21st or whatever. It's whenever Ken Lane stops wearing shorts to that's when he puts long pants on. That's when you know autumn's actually here. Going, oh, I've never heard of that. Yeah, that's probably about right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's kind of cooled down a little bit.
Yeah,
so
yeah. I did the big switcheroo in my closet. So I got I got rid of my shorts and short sleeves and sleeveless, put them in the other closet. Brought back the long sleeves, the pants.
I miss your short pants and your pretty legs.
Well, I kind of like it because I don't have to shave as often.
What you make it? Yeah, okay. TMI. Okay.
Ladies know what I'm talking about.
So, garden questions. Just what are people asking?
Sure. So Suzanne wants to know, she's getting ready to fertilize her trees. She has fruit trees and evergreens and regular deciduous trees.
Okay.
She's always used the all-purpose for all of them. She wants to know, would it be better to use the fruit and vegetable food on the fruit trees, or does it matter? Can she just use the all-purpose on all of them?
So these are like, the recipes. Mm-hmm. So you're blending different ingredients together to come up with a recipe that plants really like. And so some plants like a lot of protein, bodybuilding. Let's do that. And others are more vegan and they want to be more, thinner. They're on the keto diet or whatever. So so each plants are sort of like that.
Right.
And there's a different recipe for each one. Mm-hmm. So fruit trees are definitely going to prefer the fruit and vegetable food. Mm-hmm. The formulas seem pretty similar, 644, 744. Yeah, they're about the same.
Right.
On the fruit and vegetable food, we put an extra number, 7. So it's 6447. It's 7% calcium. So we know that fruit trees, vegetables, pumpkins, berries, grapes like a lot of calcium. It brings the flavor out, brings the size of the fruit out. If you use that consistently, you're going to get a better tasting a type of edible plant. So fruit trees would be beneficial with that way. Could you use the all-purpose? Yes. We had that recipe. That was the original one we put together 20 years ago, and it really works. And some folks go, well, I've been doing this. I'm happy with the cherries I get. I'm fine. Can you do that? Yes. And it's a good food for that. If you had your druthers, the fruit and vegetable food is probably a better one. Also, for you folks that are true organics, or hardcore organics, the fruit and vegetable food is completely organic. There's no minerals in it. Mm-hmm. So the all-purpose food, we call it all natural, but the second you put iron or sulfur, some of these trace minerals, you can't technically call it organic. So if you're a purist, the fruit and vegetable food, if you just want to keep away from chemicals, neither one has chemicals in it. Right. We're not using petroleum-based chemicals for the carbon the plants need. We're just using, chicken meal and bone meal and cottonseed meal, different meals. And then we put in that all-purpose some iron and sulfur because we're trying to lower that pH. We know that's a real issue with our water. We don't do that with the fruit and vegetable food. So, yeah, I complicated it too much. Yes, Joanne, it would be better to separate it out and buy one of each. Right. Yes.
If you had your druthers,
yes. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Next question is from John. He wants to hear you talk about putting aluminum sulfate down for the blue spruce.
Last week. Yeah.
Wants to know when's the best time to put it down.
Yeah. I thought I had mentioned that, John. Sorry, apologize for that. So aluminum sulfate is, for those that weren't tuned in last week, that is an added mineral. So you're fertilizing everything. Evergreens, you use aluminum sulfate on evergreens. It's going to prefer the all-purpose plant food, that 744. But in addition to that, you also give it aluminum sulfate. And what that is, a Colorado blue spruce, that blue, that radiant, almost silver look. It almost has this frosted look when it's really healthy. That's aluminum. Mm-hmm. It's going to pick that up in the fall of the year. So I should have said fall. Now's the time you put that on. Okay. It's going to pick up the aluminum through winter. Mm-hmm. And it's going to use that to extend next year's new candle growth or new needle growth next year. And then it will coat that new growth with this blue aluminum sulfate flavor to it. Evergreens really like it. It makes it real acidic. So it does a couple things. Makes it really acidic, so you get a brighter, deeper green out of your pine trees. But really, you want that really rich silver blue for those junipers, cypress cedars, deodars, Colorado spruce, Fat Albert spruce. They're really going to benefit from that. Really, what you see the magazines talk about, they say give it to your acid-loving plants like rhododendrons and hydrangeas. Mm-hmm. But I find it does more good up here at this elevation for your evergreen. So aluminum sulfate, it's a powder, sprinkle around the base. That's another one. We should touch on that. Don't focus all these minerals and foods right at the trunk of the tree. Right. You're putting it out towards the drip line, those outer branches, the farthest reaching branch. That's where the feeder roots are on a plant. And so you want to focus most of that food and mineral out there, most of your water. That's where it's got the small roots out there that can pick that up. At the base of the trunk of the tree are basically anchoring roots. They're big old hairy, thick barked roots that keep the tree upright. They can't really pull in minerals and food and water and stuff. Those are out towards the drip line of a tree.
This brings up a good point because I get this all the time. I have a well around my tree.
Yeah.
I can only, after that, there's weed cloth or rock.
Right.
So what do you tell them? To still go ahead and fertilize out at the drip line? Because most of that stuff will break down and go through if you have weed fabric or rock or that kind of stuff.
So that water well that you put around your tree, trees don't actually see those, only you do. Right. Their roots continue to extend out and they're reaching to the next drip system, the flower bed. They're going out towards where you rain harvest off the driveway. They're searching out food and water throughout the yard. And so when you're fertilizing, don't think in terms of where your drip system is, where your water well is. Think in terms of the tree. If that tree is way outside that water well, mm-hmm. that's where the roots are. They mirror that upper growth. So focus in on that. The foods will break down and go right through the rock like it was nothing. It'll penetrate right through that fabric. It just liquefies and goes through. The fabrics, weeds can't get up through it, but food and water can go down to the roots. That's the beauty of weed fabrics.
Right. And if you have black plastic, dig it up and get rid of it.
Yeah, black plastic. That's so old. That's kind of 90s stuff.
It is, but all occasionally you see it again. But that stuff's nasty for your yard.
Not healthy for your plant. That's where plants kind of blow over. Yeah. They kind of that windstorm we had a couple of weeks ago blows right over. You have time, maybe one more question.
We'll sneak one in. This is another kind of spruce question. He wants to know, can you prune back a spruce? He has a beautiful one, but it's encroaching on the sidewalk.
Dang it.
So can you cut it back, and when would you cut it back?
Yeah, so you'll cut it back midwinter. So right now you're not pruning because there's too many insects and disease. They're just things are alive. mice are roaming around everywhere in the gardens. I mean, just things are looking to find a winter home, and they'll find a winter home where you make a cut into a tree. They'll look to take advantage of that. So we wait until winter hits. So January, February, March, that's when you're doing most of your pruning. How to prune a spruce tree? That's a hard one. Yeah. Usually what we do, because they're pyramidal in shape, we'll just limb up the lower branches. So you'll see this Dr. Seuss look to pine and spruce trees. They just limb them off the ground so you can drive your pickup truck underneath it. And that brings it back. It looks kind of funky because when you cut a spruce back on a branch, it doesn't grow new growth out of the barky areas. It only extends what's currently growing out of your showing on your tree. It's hard to explain. Basically, you're going to prune up from the bottom from the ground, limb it up until it gets back behind the sidewalk.
Just let people walk around.
That could be it too. That's a great question. Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardeners. We'll be right back after this.
Watters' October companion plants that grow well together are blaze maples, spicy mums, glamour kale, and burning bush.
Watters' compact burning bush is a neat, well-behaved shrub prized for its blazing red foliage in the fall.
Looks great when planted with autumn gold sumacs, lilacs, and gold euonymus.
At 6 foot, this bush makes a natural hedge that burns red through autumn, all for $49.
You'll find the showiest shrubs here at Watters Garden Center.
Siri, give me directions to Watters Garden Center.
If you enjoy this show and would like to hear more, please subscribe to The Mountain Gardener, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you'd like even more garden tips, tricks, and helpful advice, please check out my website at wattersgardencenter.com for classes, videos, and more, or my online garden center at top10plants.com. Throughout the week, Lisa and I can be found here at Watters Garden Center in Prescott.
You're listening to Ken Lain, aka the Mountain Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week in Prescott at Watters Garden Center. Listen each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to mountain gardens. You've been listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lain. Join the conversation every week as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at wattersgardencenter.com. That's Watters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Now welcome back your host, Ken Lain.
So we just had a very large load of houseplant, nice pottery for houseplants, decorative ones. It's hard to find good stylish. I mean, this is in your living room, your bedrooms, your bathrooms. It can't just be a plastic cheesy pot. It's got to be something that looks good. And yet most designers will have these plaster pots. They're almost like a sleeve. They'll melt if they even get wet. A good quality houseplant, high-fired, glazed, pretty, textured container for houseplants. That's hard to find. And so we specialize in that. So we just had this huge truckload come in. The whole inside of the store is filled with pottery just for houseplants. I thought I'd explain a couple nuances with houseplants. It can be confusing. Now, when you're repotting a plant, you don't want to go too big. These are tropical plants. They're used to being in very tight spaces under the jungle, the canopy out in the jungles, the rainforests. And so they're used to surviving on very little soil. If any, orchids and some of your air plants, they're used to no soil. They live up in the trees and they just take in their nutrients and their water from the branches of the trees. And so you just go to the next size up. Don't give them too much or they'll spend all their energy on rooting and they won't grow anymore. So you kind of want that top growth to keep going. That's the beauty of a spider plant, the beauty of dracaenas and philodendrons and all these others. There's 3 main kinds of pots. So orchid pots, they make a container specifically for orchids. And the way you see them, you'll just know, that's an orchid pot. I heard this guy on the radio. It's a top 10 gardener. There he is. So they've got holes in the sides. So now all orchids, no matter the variety, from the white ones, the pink ones, the purples, all of them live in the canopies of trees in the rainforest. And so when you plant those, you want to put them in a very loose soil or bark, strictly just bark. So it has lots and lots of air. So it holds some moisture, but not very much. And the container, you put that, so usually a larger like maybe a dime size hole in the side of these pots, lots of them. In fact, we make them decorative, artistic even. So you punch out the hole, so it's got this design or this beauty, and then you glaze it, so it just glows with this. It's an orchid pot by itself is stunning, with or without an orchid. But then you fill it. You take your orchid, take it out of that plastic cheesy pot you got from the florist, and then you put it into this orchid pot with orchid bark. Usually the chunks are larger than the holes in the pots, and then you water it. And that's an orchid pot. That's very specific, made for a healthier, longer-lived orchid. If you don't do that, they quickly outgrow that little tiny bucket and they stop blooming. Another one is African violet pots or containers. Actually, Facebook prevents me from saying the word pot on posts anymore. They keep tagging me going, hey, you can't use the word pot. You're selling something wrong. So I have to use the word container. So African violet containers, they are a special type of container as well. Now, African violets, they don't like any water to touch their foliage. You get this very fuzzy, soft, almost velvety foliage. So if water touches that pad, that foliage, it spots or dies out. So you always want to water an African violet from the bottom of the pot, from the roots up. So an African violet container has two containers, one inside the other. One is a beautiful glazed, basically vessel that holds moisture without leaking out. And so the other one has a sleeve that goes inside of it made of clay. And you plant your African violet inside the sleeve, inside the clay pot. And then when you water this thing, you'll actually fill the main vessel, the main container, the pretty one, with water. You drop your African violet down in there, and the water slowly permeates through the clay and waters the African violet. If you want long-lived, if you're serious about African violets, you really do need African violet containers for a health, long-lived, better blooming kind of plant. So that's two African violets, orchids, and then you got regular houseplant pots. These are just for dracaenas and corn plants and ZZ plants and all the others. They're usually larger because these are bigger plants. A palm tree it's big. A big corn plant can be taller than I am. It gets quite large. So you've got different sizes. Usually they're all very pretty. So pretty. They're not going to be basic clay terracotta in your living room. They just don't have the look for most homes. You want something pretty, and you're picking the color or the style that fits your decor. And so that's those. There you're planting, you're upsizing. Again, just go the next size up. Take that ZZ plant and go the next size up. Pretty plant, a container that you're going to live with for years. So get one you like. It's going to be a year's investment. It'll stay in there maybe forever. And so fill it with regular potting soil. We've got a houseplant potting soil just for houseplants. You transplant it, put it in there, water it in, and there you go. With houseplants, two things. Some containers have holes in them and some don't. Some are meant to be sleeves. They're just meant to never leak because we don't want to stain that new floor you got or your carpet. Some are meant to be drained, to grow right directly into it, and you'll need a saucer underneath it. That's when we can help guide you through some of this. But there's the three main kinds of containers. You've got orchid pots, containers, can't use the word pot, orchid containers, African violet containers, and houseplant containers. There you go. You're now an expert on houseplant containers.
Prescott Blaze maple is the fastest local tree with brilliant red foliage.
Prescott Blaze maples grow 3 feet each year. That's fast.
Prescott Blaze maples are perfect for patios or any place a shade tree is needed.
We have a limited number of huge, instant Prescott Blaze maples, but the $249 size is exceptionally nice.
The maples are brighter in Prescott at Watters Garden Center.
Or shop online at top10trees.com.
We believe in roses that smell like a rose at Watters Garden Center. The Mountain Gardener, your source for timely garden advice right for higher elevations. Guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season. You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lain. Mountain gardening is very rewarding with a few Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts sure to turn your thumbs even greener. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
All right, we are back. Lisa Lain comes back. This is her segment. I try not to talk and then try to get her to talk. Between the two of us, we fill out the 10-minute segment that's just all about what do you see, what's going on, what's new, what tickles your garden fancy. So Lisa, welcome back to the studio.
Thank you.
So
Good to be back.
how's the how are the gardens looking? Are they all turning all colorful and bright, or
you're definitely seeing the change?
Yeah.
Especially this week. You're
Yeah.
really starting to see the maples, Virginia creeper, burning, but all that stuff is starting to turn or already turned. So
Yeah.
you can tell fall is here.
some things are getting done. So
Yeah.
you had the sumacs, or they've got a few leaves. Some of the
Right.
Virginia creepers, they've got a few leaves, depending on where they are or
Mhm.
where they were, what the cycle was. But the next windstorm will blow off all the if it's a good fall colored plant, it drops all its leaves at once, so it's easier to clean up.
Oh, yeah.
It's things like sycamores, they go from gold to brown to right. It's like January, they still have leaves on, they're still dropping.
Right.
So you kind of go, well, that's maybe not the most ideal autumn colored tree, but they're pretty, they're big and fast growing. So
yeah, a lot of the aspens have their real pretty gold color to them right now. So yeah, things are pretty out there. So if you don't have any fall color stuff in your yard,
sacrilege, what?
you need to get some.
Yeah.
So we did get in some Cole's compact burning bush and
nice.
dwarf burning bush. A little bit of the dwarf burning bush has a little bit bigger leaf to it. The Cole's compact has a smaller leaf to it, but the plants themselves get 4x4, 4x5, somewhere in there. And they're the ones, they haven't quite, I've been kind of looking at them around town. They're starting to turn, but when
tops.
when they go into full color, I mean, it is a bright red, absolutely gorgeous color.
Yeah, like fire engine red. I mean, it's like a bright,
Right.
the brightest red at sunset. It's that color,
Yeah.
only brighter. I don't know. It's intense.
Beautiful
3D.
shrub. It's a beautiful shrub to mix into your landscape. I wouldn't do a whole hedge of them.
Well, that's a popular thing in the Midwest. They'll actually make
Yeah.
hedges out of them.
Do they?
Yeah, because they're real thick, the barks.
Yeah.
Even though if they lose their foliage, the branches are
thick.
so tight
That's true.
that you can't get through it. It's like
Yeah.
a woody fence or something. But when the foliage is on, it's just like a solid green mass. But you get that red to it.
Red in the fall, and it stays on quite a while.
Yeah.
It's not gonna.
Another
It's
month.
not like the sumacs that kind of turn and then they drop. These keep their color on there for quite a long time. So very, very pretty. We also got some Oregon grape holly in.
Nice.
I don't know why this year has been, nobody's had it.
It's a slow grower. You know, I talked to the vendor about the grower up in Oregon, Jonathan. He's the head of Monrovia. He runs all their farms. He said it's a slower growing. All the slow growing crops, they ran out and they couldn't plug fast. So the COVID thing it just blew through all the crops. They were planting 5 years out and they sold them all in 2 years. So there's this like 18-month window where they couldn't plant enough. So now they're finally starting to catch up.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of interesting crop rotations. These
that
plants,
makes sense. But
they take a while.
It's a really pretty fall. It's an evergreen,
Yeah.
so it's going to keep its leaves year round. But it gets that real pretty orangey, yellow, red.
Yeah.
It's a very attractive shrub.
When it's in the sun.
Yeah.
More shaded, it'll be more green, but it's a true native. So when you're walking through the Bradshaws, the Mingus Mountains, you'll see a creeping Mahonia or creeping Oregon grape. Has a holly leaf. It has some red berries to it, can have some yellow flowers in spring. That's it. So you can also grow it in a couple other shrub forms, but when it's in the sun, it turns a bright red or kind of orangey red. When it's in the shade, kind of just says, I'll be green.
That's true of the Nandinas too.
Yeah.
The heavenly bamboos, Gulf streams.
Yeah.
The more sun they get, the more red they get in the wintertime.
Yeah, definitely. Very nice. Now for the Californians, you got to name it the right way so they understand. That's heavenly bamboo. So for them, everyone else is Nandina. So it has several names across the country.
Yeah.
So,
but it's not a true bamboo.
It's not a true bamboo. That's why horticulturalists call it a Nandina. Yep.
We also got in some simply gorgeous flame maples.
Oh, nice.
In a big bucket. They're big multi-trunked.
Unusual.
Very,
Yeah.
very pretty and nice because they give you that really pretty fall color, but they don't get 30 feet tall like the autumn blaze or some of your other red maples. They get about 15, 18, under 20.
For those folks that want to plant Japanese maples, those struggle here. They don't like wind and they don't like sun.
Right.
Our wind and our sun and our water. They don't like growing here. You can get them to grow, but Japanese maples are not happy here. The flame maple or amber maple, it goes by two names. Those are a small leaf maple, grows the same size, about mid-teens, but it loves the sun. It loves wind. It loves everything about Arizona and the mountains. And it's still a small leafed maple. It's by far a better choice. Yeah. Why more folks don't know about it, just because they've come from areas where it's Japanese maple country. That's all I know. But there's better choices up here in the mountains of Arizona.
Yeah. Well, these are beautiful. They're stunning. They would be an almost mature tree.
They were huge. They were just instantaneous. Yeah.
Very, very nice. So some of the other things that we got in that I just want to mention because timing is everything, right?
Yeah.
So we got some hellebores in.
Hellebores, they're way early. That's super nice. Wow.
So usually we can't get so hellebores is a evergreen perennial, loves the shade, but it blooms usually late winter, early spring.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful plant if you have the right spot for it. But usually by the time spring rolls around, you can't find them.
Yeah, that's right. They're all gone.
Right. So we brought in, they call it their Ice and Roses series.
Nice.
It's kind of a soft rose colored bloom on it. But got those in, which is really cool because usually you can't.
Are they heavily budded? Can you see the buds for this winter?
There's one that's actually blooming.
Oh my God. It doesn't surprise. They're a winter bloomer.
Yeah.
They bloom in the winter. That's why there's none left in spring. Because they bloomed out and everyone goes, oh, neat.
Right.
So camellias, they're companion plants with camellias, same way, or heucheras, that kind of stuff. The common name is Lenten rose. So hellebores and Lenten rose. So some of the old timers, they know it as Lenten rose, and you hear it written up in all the fancy magazines as hellebores.
Right. Right. So unusual to have those. So definitely got to check those out. We still have some nice Virginia creeper in that hasn't turned yet.
Oh, really? You got another load. Good. We have more.
We have more.
They come here at this elevation and they turn color and drop their leaves.
But these still are green. They're starting. I was looking at them this morning. They're starting to get they're starting to turn. So, but if you want to enjoy some of the fall color on there, you certainly can.
Virginia creepers, that's also why they're very fire-wise. So they don't have a lot of burnable leaves kind of stuff. They stay low to the ground. They're heavy foliage when they have heavy moisture when they do have foliage. And so they tend to suppress fires, or they burn very cool. So if you're up in the mountains, and it's a native, it just grows wild out there, so it naturalizes so easily. It's a great plant, and this is a good time to plant those.
And we also still have a wonderful selection of fall mums in. So if you're still looking to put your mums in to decorate for Halloween, we still have those. We have lots of pansies and violas, snapdragons, and they're just amazing little plants for the fall and winter here. And people come in, they go, well, what can bloom through the winter? Pansies, viola.
Do you have anything else? No. Dusty Miller doesn't.
Dusty Miller.
There's a few. There's a few things.
A few things, but they just do so well. And just kind of, even with snow landing on them, they go, I don't care.
I think they grow better here at this elevation. This 400 to 6,500 foot level. Groom Creek, Holland Pines, down to Cottonwood, Sedona, Camp Verde. And everything in between, they grow better here than they do in the Midwest, where they freeze out, or in the desert where they burn out so fast. Here they just keep blooming. People plant them at the wrong time. They plant them in spring. You should be planting each of those that you just mentioned now in the fall, because you get more color, more bang for your garden trowel than you do otherwise. Just trying something new. Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardeners. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing with us. We'll be right back after this.
Waters companion plants that grow well together are blaze maple, burning bush, spicy mums, glamour kale, and red wall creeper.
Waters' red wall creeper is specially selected to dress up those miles of stockade fence.
A mountain vine with rich green foliage turns fire engine red through autumn.
Waters' native vines are just $49 and both deer and rabbit proof.
You'll find the showiest vines here at Waters Garden Center.
Google, give me directions to Waters Garden Center.
We believe your garden should be natural, safe, and organic. At Waters Garden Center,
If you enjoy this show and would like to hear more, please subscribe to The Mountain Gardener, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you'd like even more garden tips, tricks, and helpful advice, please check out my website at wattersgardencenter.com for classes, videos, and more, or my online garden center at top10plants.com. Throughout the week, Lisa and I can be found here at Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
welcome to The Mountain Gardener with Ken Lane. Gardening in the mountains is different. Listen to Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts guaranteed to make your gardens more beautiful than ever this year. Now for better advice that works locally, welcome your host, Ken Lane.
If ever there was a time that you wanted to plant evergreens in your yard, so you folks new to the area, let's say you just came from California or you're just moving in from Chicago or wherever, Hawaii, they're from all over. So Prescott, Arizona, we're a place no one's from here. I mean, it's very rare you find another Prescottonian. We're from everywhere. And that's part of the reason that we're so cordial. I would say Northern Arizona, from Payson to Flag to Williams to, we're very cordial, open. We like because we're all from other places. And so gardening here is maybe different. And so here especially those valley areas where there's just nothing out there, you need some help. If you're in the Central Highlands where lots of trees are there, okay, yeah, the pressure's off. But most new home sites are now barren. You've got a blank slate. So you need to physically design and put those plants into your yard. This is a great time to be planting evergreens. Now, 20% of your entire landscape should be dedicated to evergreens, either shrubs or trees. It's 20% of your entire plants. If you don't have that, if you get that ratio off, all of a sudden you're going to feel pretty open, exposed here in another 3 weeks. And so it's a good time to spot those as the maples and the aspen, the ash, the locust start to lose their leaves. You go, oh, I can see the neighbors across the yard now. Oh, I do want something right there. So an Arizona ash or Arizona cypress goes in there. Good time to plant it. If you're planting now, the plants will continue to root through December. So they actually are actively rooting right now. That's why it's so good. And then the beauty with evergreens, especially evergreens, they only typically flush growth one time in the year. In the spring, they flush at new candle growth, and then that's it. Whatever you have, there's no more behind that. And so the more roots you have underneath that plant before that spring flush of new growth, the more growth you're going to have. And so the beauty of planting now is you get more growth. You have a bigger plant next spring because it's going to root out. Then it's going to root out some more in spring, and then it's going to flush out its new growth. So you're doubling down. You'll get way more candle growth, way more evergreen needles, foliage, conifer growth by planting now than it is in spring. And we have more choices. So we are bulking up right now because there's this big flush. I used to sell 2,000 cut Christmas trees. I mean, it was almost offensive to me as well. So it's just like we'd cut down trees like crazy, load them on trucks. People come in, we'd sell them with a couple lots here in Prescott. And we've migrated everyone over to living Christmas trees. So you take a living tree, it's got its roots, you put it out in the yard, you put it on the back patio, you bring it in the house, you put the presents underneath, and when you're done, you go plant it. It's a good way to go, actually. And so we sell way more of those now. And so we are bulking up to be ready for that. So the holidays, so you got to bring them in now so they acclimate, so they get used to our weather, and then you can plant them whenever you want. That, and we know we only get one shot at this. So garden centers up in the higher elevations, we have to guesstimate how many pine trees, spruce, firs, cypress, cedar, junipers, Arizona cypress. We have to guesstimate how many of those we're going to sell through winter, because once winter hits, you can't ship them. You got to acclimate and go into this. If you're truly a good gardener, you care about a garden center, you care about your customers, you're going to bring it in so that they are fully rooted and they're used to our environment. You're not bringing them in from some Southern California tropical climate. They're shocked into up here. And then you wonder why they didn't do well in spring. Well, we bring them in so that they will do well in spring. So you can plant them. So we're forecasting now. So you've got a huge selection of every size, from holiday sizes to, I want instantaneous trees. We just sold someone 4, they had to be 10-foot pine trees. I mean, you had a whole beautiful section. I'll take them all. I'll take those. And okay, wow, money's no object. I love it. I'll see if I can get you some more. So it's that kind of thing. Here's a couple things. So the folks that are new for more tropical climates, they don't know the names of some of these things. So they'll go, I want that one that looks like a Christmas tree. There's only one that does that. It's a Colorado spruce. They grow wild. They're on the ridge lines or on the mountain tops. They like the higher elevation. If you're planting them down in Cordes Junction and Dewey and Prescott Valley and Paulden, well, you might have to put them on a drip system to get them through that heat of summer. But there's some old ones in Prescott that I know have not been cared for like in 20 years, and they still look fantastic. They do get big. They're going to go easily. I mean, easily 60 feet tall, maybe bigger with some age. So they're a big tree. They're not for everyone, not for every yard. So we do make a variety of that's a dwarf. It's called Fat Albert spruce. It looks exactly like a Colorado spruce, that beautiful kind of pyramid shape, but only grows 20 feet instead of 60 feet. So it's usually it tops out in the teens, somewhere in there. But so that same color, that same layered pattern, it looks like a Christmas tree, just lower care. That's the one you want for the smaller types of yards. Don't introduce a big old Colorado spruce and you've only on a 5th acre. It's going to eventually, all you're going to have in the backyard is spruce tree. That's it. Everything else is like obliterated. In the front yard, all you're going to see is spruce tree. Your house is gone in 5-7 years. So there's a place for certain plants. You've got Baccarat spruce. You've got, there's if it's got a name, if it's a spruce, if it says the word spruce, it's related to Colorado, the native. And then we're playing with colors. So there's one that's called baby blue spruce. It's basically shorter than Colorado, but it's got a tighter layering pattern and intense, like insane blue color, like silver color. It's not even blue. It's silver. I mean, it's gorgeous. So if you want a contrasting color, that's a great one. It's really pretty. It looks like a Christmas tree. The number one seller for privacy and windbreaks and cutting the headlights coming down the street into your front patio, your bedroom. The number one, Arizona cypress. It's a native, grows wild here. So many of especially at the lower elevation, so 5,000 foot, maybe a little lower, a lot of those junipers you see, they're not junipers. They're Arizona cypress. And so the difference, way I tell, is if they've got a berry, it's a juniper. If they got a little tiny pine cone, a little smaller than a golf ball, it's an Arizona cypress. That's the difference. But it's fast growing. It's hardy. I mean, once you get up to size, you don't have to water it or care for it again. It goes by itself. Animals don't eat it. Generally, I did have an elk once, level one, big one, like a 20-footer, big bull elk. He's in a rut and he's showing off for the ladies. He came in with his antlers, this humongous elk, huge, comes walking down the driveway just in front of the barn, and he just takes his antlers and rips this thing a new one. I didn't eat it. He was just showing off. Fertilized it, got it back up to snuff, kind of got it going. Took a couple of years, but generally speaking, deer, javelina, rabbit, they're not going to bother Arizona cypress. So it's a good choice. Deodar cedar, that's one. We've got several of those in, some beautiful 15 gallons. That's the fastest growing of all the conifers. You want I want an evergreen tree that grows 3-4 feet a year. And I want a screening now, Deodar cedar. The negative, this is a monstrous tree. It takes a Colorado spruce and makes it look like a little baby. It'll grow up easily 80 feet. It outgrows its space. Just I tell folks 80 by 25. So if your backyard's only 25 feet wide, one tree's going to do you for the entire tree, and it won't take very long. And so it's too big. I don't introduce that one into my yard. It's just too big. I don't want that kind of maintenance. I don't want it up by the driveway. That's a big mistake I find newbies make. They grow fast, so you get a lot of tree for the money. The problem is they outgrow their space so fast that now you're next to a driveway or something. You're having to limit up so that you can get your car down the driveway. Now it looks like a Dr. Seuss tree. You should have gone with something smaller. So junipers should get a chance. We have native juniper forest. They just grow everywhere. They're going to adapt well. They get a bad rap because of the males. So the men of the juniper family are the ones that throw off all the pollen. That's the allergies. The females don't do that. They're the ones that put on the berries. So men put on the pollen. They're the allergy problems. Women put on the berries. They're cute. They're shapely. They just look better. So we only sell females here at the garden center. So you can have a hardy, evergreen, robust tree. Nothing eats, takes our climate, our wind, or snow, or sun, it takes everything. And it's going to live for decades, hundreds of years. And it's not going to have allergies. So junipers, we need to give them a chance too. They're just such good plants. All right, that's it for this segment. Be right back after this.
Autumn is the most beautiful time of the year in the mountains, and Watters Garden Center has the brightest trees.
We've collected 700 hardy trees, including maple, aspen, ash, and oak.
Each is ready to plant, so you can enjoy brilliant fall foliage in your yard.
Shop online at top10trees.com or visit us in Prescott.
Trees are brighter at Watters Garden Center in Prescott and online at top10trees.com.
We believe small business can win against impersonal box stores at Watters Garden Center. If you enjoy this show and would like to hear more, please subscribe to The Mountain Gardener wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you'd like even more garden tips, tricks, and helpful advice, please check out my website at wattersgardencenter.com for classes, videos, and more, or my online garden center at top10plants.com. Throughout the week, Lisa and I can be found here at Watters Garden Center in Prescott.
You've tuned in to The Mountain Gardener with local garden expert Ken Lain. Join him each week as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So one claim to fame or advantage or the benefits of your independent, smaller garden centers, rather than these big old, basically re-wholesale or just buy everything up from everywhere. They just chuck it onto a yard and they sell it to contractors. Typically B grade, they're going for price. Here we're going for better quality. So if you glean off, if you've got 100 plants that you've grown, 100 andinas or maples or Colorado spruce, there'll be 10 of them that are just, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I can't believe a tree could be that pretty. And so we fly into the farm. We actually know all the farmers and we go, hey, Chris, I need to be down there. We're coming to pick. Can we hand pick the trees out of those 100? We'll take off the best 10. We bring them to the garden center. That takes some effort, some energy, but it definitely, you'll see it is pronounced. That, and we're verifying the farmers didn't take shortcuts. And so did they grow them in a greenhouse when they should be outdoors? So they actually will plant better. Did they root prune trees? So the average Colorado spruce, maple tree, some of the bigger specimens are 10 years old, some older. Some of your spirals and some of this, they're ancient. So as they are growing, they're plant them in a field. They're growing up like corn. They need to root prune those so that those trees don't put on one taproot. They put on multiple fibrous taproots. Then we'll dig that up in the fall or the season prior, and we'll pot it up. Then we'll root it out even more in the container. Then we bring it to the garden center. We're going up I'm walking the fields, kicking the dirt, looking at the hole where they just dug up a plant, going, hey, what's the root structure look like in that? So the plants will transplant. So sometimes those plants, if you failed many times, some garden centers, I hate to get on my soapbox a little bit, but they're just selling plants and they don't care If it's pretty and they get it out by this weekend, done, we'll reload. That is not the way to sell. These are living, breathing things. They need to be healthy, robust. They need to be used to the climate. They need to be the right plant for this altitude. If it's something for the desert, it'll freeze in the winter. If it's something for the sun, if it's something for the mountains, it'll burn out in the summer. So you need the right plants. And we need to coach folks, gardeners, customers, on where to plant it and how to plant it. This is a difficult place to garden. So in other parts of the country, you just kind of slop it around and it's close enough and it'll grow. Here, you need to be more exact. You can be very effective, very good gardening, but there's less fudge factor. You need to be more accurate. You can't just wing it. You got to actually do it correctly and don't take shortcuts. And that's getting the soil right. It's staking things up right, making sure the wind is right, making sure the exposures. And so we have these just exotic, plant handouts on how to water, how to plant it, how much product you need, of what size. So we go out of our way because we are not selling plants. We're selling garden experiences. That's the difference. Garden experience or just a plant. If you just want a plant, you go out down to the box stores. They'll sell you a plant. It may or may not live, may or not even be right for the area. They're going to have all these evergreens come in. They're going to come in. They're made for the deserts. They aren't expected to grow out here. I'm just embarrassed sometimes with what I see. So we host garden classes every Saturday, at least through the peak of the season. So we go through this month, take a little break here for the holidays. We come right back at it in January. But this weekend, this Saturday, this Saturday, the 21st, is cactus, succulents, and the drought hardy, the low maintenance plants. So go deep into that. And then next week is the autumn shrubs. Which one are they? What are you seeing? Why are they so beautiful? How do you plant them? So that's here at Watters Garden Center. Take a look at that at wattersgardencenter.com. You'll see a button on the front that just says classes. You can see them all right there. Throughout the week, Lisa and I love camping out here at Watters Garden Center and talking to fans of the show.
October companion plants that grow well together are blaze maples, burning bush, Arizona creeper, glamour kale, and spicy mum.
Watters Spicy Mums are best sellers for super long bloom times and local garden tough.
Spicy mums glow yellow with a halo of fiery orange around each daisy flower.
These big, bold perennials are perfectly shaped and add color in autumn when few flowers are in peak bloom, at just $9.
You'll find bright fall flowers here at Watters Garden Center in Prescott.
We believe we're the ones that can fill the world with sunshine at Watters Garden Center. If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in your landscape that just feels better, then tune in every week to The Mountain Gardener. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting wattersgardencenter.com. That's Watters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.